Lincoln's birthday, he came to school dressed up in his father's frock coat and tall hat and became Abraham Lincoln. And stood up in front of the class and recited the Gettysburg Address. And the teacher was so fascinated, she rushed down the hall and got the principal and brought him to the class and had him listen to Walt give his little speech. And the principal was so fascinated that he took Walt around to all the other classes in the school.
Ever since I was a small boy in Illinois, I've had a great personal admiration for Abraham Lincoln. So when we decided to recreate some of the great moments in Mr. Lincoln's life for the World's Fair, we directed all our energies to that task. We wanted to bring to the people of today the inspiring words of the man who held this nation together during its moment of greatest crisis, the Civil War. Now, to recreate a truly lifelike image of Lincoln, we use our new medium of Audio-Animatronics. To start with, we were fortunate in being able to secure this life mask of the 16th president. How did we get this bling?
This is actually a copy of an original life mask by the sculptor Leonard Walt in Chicago in 1860.
Before Lincoln was president.
Before Lincoln was president.
Before he had a beard.
That's right.
Now with this to start with, our sculptor Blaine Gibson has been able to create this very accurate likeness of this great man. During our exhaustive research into Lincoln's life, we studied his mannerisms, his gestures, and even his voice characteristics to create a faithful likeness of this honored man. The final result is so lifelike that you might find it hard to believe.
Hello, my name is Matthew Brady, and I had the honor of being a photographer during one of the most important periods in American history. Back in the 1850s, photography was still considered a new art form. In those days, cameras had no shutters and no film. We would simply remove the lens cap and expose the image on a fragile glass plate. Professional photographers were considered artists, and I was considered one of the best in the world. As my prestige grew, celebrities of government, theater, and society flocked to my gallery to have their portraits made. One day, in 1860, a tall man with large ears and a long nose walked in for a sitting. He was an Illinois attorney named Abraham Lincoln. Just 1 year later, that same man walked into my studio for another sitting. This time he walked in as the 16th President of the United States. And no president had ever taken the oath of office with such a heavy burden on his shoulders. His stance against the westward expansion of slavery caused 11 southern states to declare their independence from the Union. The nation was splitting apart. President Lincoln was doing everything he could to keep it together.
We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection.
But despite that appeal, it was not long before he had a war on his hands. A civil war. Almost overnight, my gallery was filled with young soldiers wanting to have their photographs taken to send off to loved ones. Now, imagine that you are a young soldier on leave here in Washington. Your name is Private John Cunningham. Naturally, you would come to my gallery to have your photograph taken. Well, Private Cunningham, step inside, and my associate Anthony will assist you. I'll be with you in just a few minutes.
Let's see. You must be Private Cunningham, right? Mr. Brady will be with you in just a moment.
Soldier, we're nearly ready to make your photograph. Anthony, Everybody, is the glass plate ready?
Just a minute, Mr. Brady.
As soon as the plate is in the camera, we shall be ready. But before I immortalize you, I think you need a haircut. Anthony!
Sorry.
Give this soldier a trim while I ready a new plate.
All right.
Still.
Don't worry. I've got lots of people. I mean, their hair. So, that you've seen a lot of action. I'm thinking of enlisting myself. I'm already used to taking orders. Let me get that hair off you.
You look much better. Now, hold still. So here you've come to Washington to meet the president. It so happens I'm on my way over there as well. You're welcome to come along with me if you like.
Got it.
Good. Take the private's plate to the darkroom, Anthony.
Right.
Carefully. Then gather my equipment for the White House. So, Private Cunningham, are you ready to meet Abraham Lincoln? My goodness, it's Washington weather. The heat doesn't get to you, the insects surely will. Hold still. Oh, look. Here's the President's Secretary, John Hay.
Mr. Brady, the President is just finishing up with Frederick Douglass, but he wanted me to send you right in.
Thank you, Mr. Hay.
Excuse me, I have to move.
Sorry, gentlemen. Mr. Brady, please go ahead and set up your equipment.
Thank you, sir.
And who is this young soldier?
Private Cunningham.
I'm very glad to meet you, young man. Please, sit down. Have some coffee. Excuse me.
That's Frederick Douglass sitting opposite the President.
President Lincoln, enlisting black troops in the Army was a substantial achievement, given your stance when the war began.
Yes. When the war began, I insisted it was to preserve the Union and not free the slaves. But since I issued the Emancipation Proclamation, the nature of the war has changed.
Then you must give black soldiers the same pay you give white soldiers.
If we win this war, it will bring a new birth of freedom to all Americans, white as well as black, Mr. Douglas.
Mr. President, I must take my leave. But I assure you, I will continue recruiting black soldiers.
And I assure you, Mr. Douglas, that in the end, they shall have the same pay as white soldiers.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're very welcome.
Good day, sir.
Mr. Douglas.
Well, Mr. Brady, how would you like me to pose?
I'd like you to look natural.
That is exactly what I would like to avoid. Excuse me, I must ring for my secretary. Mr. Hay!
Yes, sir.
I can't find a thing on this desk. Would you light the lamp?
Of course, sir.
What is this?
An invitation to speak at the Gettysburg ceremony. I think you should decline.
No, Mr. Hay. This could be a chance to tell the nation what we are fighting for. Leave me alone a moment. Everyone, please. Wait, Private Cunningham. A word before you go. My boy, I know you must get back to the Army now and continue to do your duty. And I must get back to mine. Let's hope for both our sakes we can end this war quickly. Goodbye, and may God bless you.
you met old Abe. What was he like?
Widen the ranks, soldier!
Tell me later.
Forward, boys, forward! There they are! Move on, on ground! Wounded!
Cunningham's hit. Easy, Cunningham. We got you on the way. Here come the rats. Cunningham, you still with us?
Cunningham. Private. You're at St. Elizabeth's Hospital. Your leg was hit pretty bad. I'm sorry. The doctors, they did everything that they could. But I'm afraid that they weren't able to save it. It's the president.
Hello, boys. I can't stay long. I hope you're all comfortable and resting nicely. Nurse,
Sir?
who is this young man?
Private Cunningham, sir.
Cunningham. I know this man. Oh, this war. This awful, awful war. My boy, you must live. You must live.
Private Cunningham followed the president's order and lived. And when President Lincoln spoke at Gettysburg that November, no one could foresee that the 10 sentences they were about to hear would live on to become one of the great speeches in American history.
President. I can't see.
Is that Lincoln?
77 years ago, our fathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We are met to dedicate a portion of it as the final resting place of those who have given their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this, but in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate. We cannot consecrate. We cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our power to add or to detract. The world will very little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work that they have thus far so nobly carried on. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they here gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that the nation shall, under God, have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.